Okay, gastric glands are present in the mucosa region. Mucosa is the part of stomach. Okay, so now this gastric gland consists different cells. This gastric gland consists different cells. You may see here chief cell, endocrine cell, and parental cell. So different cells are present in the gastric gland. So those who will discuss what is gastric gland, what are the enzymes secreted by the gastric gland, those we will discuss now. So you have some idea about the gastric gland. Gastric glands are present in the foldings of the stomach region. Okay, so those foldings they are present in the mucosa region. Okay, in the mucosa only gastric glands are present. Now we'll discuss deeply about the gastric glands. So the gastric glands, that is called gastric mucosa, is the lining of gastric mucosa. Means I already told in the mucosa region only these gastric glands are present. That's why lining of mucosa, the layer of mucosa we are discussing now. The inner surface of stomach is highly folded into rugae. So I already told the stomach inner layer is having some foldings. These foldings we call as rugae. Okay, the gastric mucosa has a gastric pits in its folds. So I will show you gastric pit. So this is these are the foldings we call as gastric pits. You can see here. This is the gastric pit. In this gastric pits, gastric glands are present. Okay, the cells that line folds deeper into the mucosa and are exocrine gastric glands. Gastric glands are having some ducts, so that's why we call as exocrine gastric glands. These are present in the gastric mucosa region. The gastric glands consist of different cells. Different cells are present in the gastric pits. So what are the cells present in the gastric pits we will discuss now. First one is surface foveolar cells. Surface foveolar cells. So these are not present in your textbook, but I am telling about deep understanding, and also it is useful for competitive exams like a NEET and some other exams also. Okay, the different cells are present in gastric pits. First one is the surface foveolar cells. Okay, those are the tall columnar mucin secreting cells that line entire gastric mucosa as well as gastric pits. Okay, you can see this is the gastric pit. This is one gastric pit. Okay, this gastric pit consists of gastric glands. In this, one type of cells are present in the gastric glands. Those are the surface foveolar cells. What is the function of these surface foveolar cells? These are present in the columns. This is the columnar epithelium present in the uh, stomach region. So okay, this columnar epithelium having this surface foveolar cells, these are producing the substance called mucin. The substance called mucin. Mucin is a sticky substance. Okay, that mucin secreting cells that line entire gastric mucosa as well as gastric pits. The surface foveolar cells are mainly secreting the substance called mucin. And next one is mucous neck cells. You can see here mucous neck cells. Okay, these are not present here. Mucous neck cells. These secrete mucus and are progenitor cells for the surface epithelium as well as cells of gastric glands. So these mucous neck cells also secretes the mucus substance, and also these cells are progenitor cells for the surface epithelium. Progenitor cells means precursor cells. So precursor cells for the surface epithelium. What is the epithelial cells are present in the mucosa region? Those epithelial cells are formed by the mucous neck cells. Understood? And next, third type of cells we call as glandular cells. These glandular cells, they are present in the stomach region. I already told two types of cells: surface foveolar cells, mucous neck cells. The very important cells are called glandular cells. These glandular cells are present in the gastric glands. These the previous cells, mucous neck cells and surface foveolar cells, they are present in the gastric pit. They are present in the gastric pit, not in the gastric glands. Okay, glandular cells are present in gastric glands. Okay, so these glandular cells are mainly three types. You may see here. First one, main gastric glands found in the body and fundus of stomach. You may see here, this is the stomach. This stomach consists of three parts. One is cardiac stomach, fundus or fundic stomach, and pyloric stomach. Okay, three parts are present: cardiac region, fundic region, and pyloric region. Okay, gastric glands are found in fundic region of the stomach. Okay, understood? The fundic region consists the gastric glands. These gastric glands are consist two types of cells. What are the two types of cells? One is chief or peptic cells. Chief cells are peptic cells. This is very important point. You have to understand very clearly here. Chief cells are peptic cells. They are producing the substance that is called as pepsinogen. Pepsinogen is produced by the peptic cells or chief cells. And next, another type of cells which are present in the gastric gland, those are parental cells or oxyntic cells. What we call parental cells or oxyntic cells. These parental or oxyntic cells, they are producing the HCl or hydrochloric acid. These two kinds of substance are producing from the gastric gland. One is pepsinogen, another one is HCl. Pepsinogen is produced from the chief cells and hydrochloric acid is produced from the parental cells or oxyntic cells. And second type of glands you may see here, those are the cardiac tubular glands. Cardiac tubular glands, these are present at the cardiac region. They secrete some soluble mucus. And third type of glands are antral glands. Antral glands are there. These antral glands consist two types of cells. One is mucus cells, another one is G cells. Mucus cells are producing the mucus and G cells are producing a hormone, that is a gastrin hormone. This gastrin hormone, it stimulates the production of gastric juice. It stimulates the production of gastric juice. Okay. You may see here. Here, this is the gastric gland. In this, you may see different cells. Mucus cells. Okay, mucus cells. This is the neck region. Parental cells, chief cells, and smooth muscle cells are also present, and G cells. So I already told G cells. G cells secretes the gastrin hormone, and chief cells, these cells produces the pepsinogen substance. Parental cells, these are also called as oxyntic cells. These cells produces the HCl. Okay. Next, in the gastric pit, different cells are there. Those functions are also given here. First one is surface mucus cells. The surface mucus cells, they are present in the surface of the stomach or gastric pit. Gastric pit surface consists surface mucuses. They secrete the mucus. Mucus అంటే ఏంటంటే ఒక జిగట పదార్థం అనమాట. ఒక దాన్నే మనము మ్యూకస్ ని శ్లేష్మం అంటాం అనమాట. సో జిగటగా ఉండి ఇట్ విల్ ప్రివెంట్స్ ది డ్యామేజ్ టు ద ఎలిమెంటరీ కెనాల్. మన స్టమక్ ఎలాంటి హార్మ్ఫుల్ ఎఫెక్ట్ జరగకుండా దీన్ని కాపాడడంలో మ్యూకస్ అనేది చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్ రోల్ ప్లే చేస్తుంది. సో నాట్ ఓన్లీ సింగిల్ సెల్స్, డిఫరెంట్ సెల్స్ ఆర్ ప్రొడ్యూసింగ్ ది మ్యూకస్. యూ కెన్ సీ అనదర్ టైప్ ఆఫ్ cell, that is a mucous neck cell. Mucous neck cell also produces the mucus. Okay, and the third type of cell you may see here, that is a parental cell. This cell produces the hydrochloric acid, and also another one, that is intrinsic factor. Intrinsic factor, this is very important. Why this is very important? Intrinsic factor is useful for the absorption of vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 absorption, that is takes place with the help of intrinsic factor only. Without intrinsic factor, there is no absorption of vitamin B12. Understood? Okay, this intrinsic factor also produced by the parental cell, and also parental cell produces the HCl. And another type of cells we call as chief cells. These chief cells produces the substance that is called pepsinogen, and another substance called gastric lipase. Pepsinogen and also called and also another one is gastric lipase. And the last cell is called G cell. G cell secretes the hormone that is called gastrin. Okay, so these are the cells present in the gastric pit. These cells are helpful for the secretion of different substances. Okay, and next, gastric gland. It produces gastric gland. It produces the gastric juice. The gastric juice consists different substances. That is some other topic. So basically, we have to understand gastric glands are producing the substance that is called gastric juice. How the gastric juice is there? What are the characteristics of gastric juice? Gastric juice generally pale yellow in color, watery. It is like a liquid, and acidic in nature, and it is a digestive fluid produced in the stomach. Where it is produced, the gastric juice? Where the gastric glands are present, there the gastric juice production takes place. Where the gastric glands are present? Gastric glands are present in stomach region. Okay, gastric juice. Gastric juice is, I already told, it is pale yellow in color. The pH of the gastric juice is 0.8 to 1.8. So you know, pH 0 to 1 means that is a very strong acid. pH 0 to 1 means that is very strong acid. The gastric juice consists, the pH range is 0.8 to 1.8. That's why it is this gastric juice having very acidic nature or strong acidic nature. Generally, per day, it secretes 2 to 3 liters of gastric juice. Gastric glands secrete a complex digestive fluid. I already told gastric juice. Gastric gland secretes a complex fluid that is called gastric juice. Okay. What happened, Venkatramana? Anything you want to speak? You have raised your hand. Gastric juice, it consists different substances. One is a strong acid HCl that is produced by the oxyntic cells, and some electrolytes are there, mucus, water. I already told intrinsic factor, this is produced by the parental cell, and bicarbonates. Some ions are also present in the gastric juice. Next, What are the electrolytes? What are the ions present in the gastric juice? We have to know sodium, potassium, H plus, that is a proton, and magnesium ions. These are the cations are present in the gastric juice, and anions, chloride ion, bicarbonate ion, and phosphate ion, sulfate ion. These are the anions are present in the gastric juice. And some enzymes are present. What are the enzymes you may see in the gastric juice? Those are the pepsinogen. It is secreted by the chief cells. Chief cells are peptic cells, that is produces the pepsinogen. And some gelatinase. Gelatinase is also one enzyme. It liquefies the gelatin. And gastric lipase. Gastric lipase, it is also produced by the chief cells. And lysozymes. Lysozyme, it is bactericidal enzyme. Okay, it is present in different body fluids of human. In most of the body fluids are having the lysozyme enzyme, like saliva also consists the lysozyme, and gastric juice are also having the lysozyme. It is a bactericidal in nature. And another enzyme, that is urease. Urease hydrolyzes the urea to produce the ammonia. So generally urease is present, but it is having a very less role. Okay. And carbonic anhydrase also present. You may see carbonic anhydrase, it is also present in the gastric juice. And next one, mucus. Mucus is present in the gastric juice. Here mucus is mainly soluble mucus and visible mucus. Two kind of mucus are there. The pyloric and cardiac region, it produces the soluble mucus, and surface epithelium of gastric mucosa, it produces the visible mucus. Okay. And another substance, that is the intrinsic factor. I already told this intrinsic factor. It is useful for the absorption of vitamin B12. Okay, this is the chart. What are the cells are present in the gastric gland, and what are the substances those secreted, and what is the role of those substances. So you have to learn about this chart. Parental cells, they are producing the HCl and intrinsic factor. And HCl, it kills the microorganisms and activates the pepsinogen enzyme. So pepsinogen is activated by the HCl. Okay. And intrinsic factor, I already told, vitamin B12 absorption. Chief cells, it produces the pepsinogen and gastric lipase. So pepsinogen, it is a protein. It involves in the protein digestion, and gastric lipase, it involves in the fat digestion. Next, G cells, they are producing the gastrin. It is a hormone. It stimulates the gastric juice secretion. ECL, ECL cells, these are produces the histamine substance. These histamine also stimulate the acid secretion. Mucous neck cells, they are producing the mucus and also bicarbonates. And this mucus and bicarbonates, they are useful for the protection of stomach region from the acid. And D cells, they are producing the somatostatin. Somatostatin is one kind of hormone. It inhibits the acid secretion. It inhibits the acid secretion. So acid secretion is stimulated by the gastrin and histamine. Acid secretion is inhibited by the somatostatin. Okay. So let us talk about HCl. HCl, it is a strong acid. I already told. It is having very less pH. 0.8, generally 0 to 1 pH is there to the HCl. Okay. Mostly HCl useful for the conversion of pepsinogen to pepsin, and also it destroys the bacteria, and it also maintains the less pH environment in the stomach, and it stimulates the some substances like secretin and cholecystokinin. Those secretin and cholecystokinin, they are produced in the small intestine region. But the small intestine have to produce this substance, means whenever the HCl production takes place, then only it stimulates the production of secretin and cholecystokinin. Without HCl, there is no stimulation of this production. And next, promotes the absorption of calcium and iron in the small intestine. Okay, here HCl also playing a very important role in the absorption of calcium ions and iron ions in the small intestine region. So that is about the gastric glands. Next one is intestinal glands. Intestinal glands, they are having main function is digestion, absorption. So I already told gastric glands, they are producing the gastric juice. Here intestinal glands, they are producing the intestinal juice. This intestinal juice also called as succus entericus. Okay. Here the production of gastrointestinal hormones takes place from the intestinal glands. And small intestine, you may see the small intestine here from the after the stomach region, it starts the small intestine. The first curve we call as duodenum, next folding structure we call as jejunum, and then last one is called ileum. Three parts are present in the small intestine: duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. Okay, so the length of the small intestine is 4 to 6 meters. And to aid in the digestion and absorption, the small intestine secretes enzymes and has mucus producing glands. Pancreas and the liver also deliver their exocrine secretions into the duodenum. You may see here at the duodenum region, one duct is entered into the duodenum region. The duct we call as hepatopancreatic duct. This hepatopancreatic duct that will enter into the duodenum region. Through this hepatopancreatic duct, bile juice and pancreatic juice released into the small intestine region. Okay. So the mucosa is highly folded. In the small intestine region, mucosa, one layer inside of the alimentary canal, that is called mucosa. This mucosa is highly folded. So intestinal glands consist two kind of intestinal glands are there. Those are Brunner's glands and Crypts of Leiberkuhn. Brunner glands and Crypts of Leiberkuhn, this produces different substances. These substances are forming the intestinal juice. So Brunner glands, why it is called Brunner? These Brunner glands are named by John Conrad Brunner, is a scientist. Based on his name, the naming of Brunner glands. And Crypts of Leiberkuhn, it is named by John Nathaniel Leiberkuhn. Okay, based on the names of scientists, these glands are called Brunner's glands and Leiberkuhn, Crypts of Leiberkuhn. So first we will discuss Brunner glands. You may see here, this is the Brunner gland. This compound tubular submucosal glands, these are present at the submucosa region. The above one is the mucosa and the below one is the submucosa. Produces the mucus rich alkaline secretion, mucus containing bicarbonates. Mostly Brunner glands produces the mucus only. Okay. And second one, this is called Crypts of Leiberkuhn. You may see here, this is the Crypts of Leiberkuhn. This is the Brunner's gland. Crypts of Leiberkuhn, it is also present in the villi region. Villi means foldings of the small intestine called villi. Okay, here these foldings are formed by the intestinal epithelium. Okay, so these intestinal epithelium is present in the crypts of Leiberkuhn region. Okay, this is the crypts of Leiberkuhn. So these Brunner glands and crypts of Leiberkuhn, these are present in the villi region. Villi are folding structures in the small intestine. These villi are mainly involved in increasing their surface area for the absorption. Why the foldings are there in the small intestine means, for the foldings, due to the presence of these foldings, the surface area will increase. Okay, so these are the pictures about intestinal villi, the foldings of small intestine. These are the foldings. These foldings, it will appear like this. And what are the cells present in the intestinal villi? You may see here different cells like microvilli. The villi consists the microvilli. So these are the foldings you may see in the small intestine in different areas. So these are collected in different animals, different organisms. The secretion of Brunner glands along with that of crypts of Leiberkuhn consists the intestinal juice. The two glands, Brunner glands and crypts of Leiberkuhn, these two are producing the substances. These substances are combined together, and that we call as intestinal juice. And another name also there for the intestinal juice, that is called succus entericus. So you may see here succus entericus, that is aqueous in nature. It consists of intestinal enzymes and also mucus. Okay, these crypts of Leiberkuhn consists mainly water. It is producing the mainly water and electrolytes like different ions by the epithelial cells. And basically the intestinal juice, it is producing 2 liters per day. These intestinal juice mainly like ECF, extracellular fluid like only, but slightly alkaline in nature. So how the extracellular fluid is there, like that only in intestinal juice is there. But here, due to the presence of some ions or electrolytes, it is alkaline in nature and colorless and cloudy, mostly mucus and epithelial cells and cholesterol also present in this kind of intestinal glands. They are producing the substances like intestinal juice. Next, I already told mucus is produced from the Brunner glands and goblet cells. Brunner glands are producing the mucus and goblet cells are also producing the mucus. Some enzymes which are present in the intestinal juice, okay, those we call as intestinal enzymes. This cause final hydrolysis of food before absorption. So the final digestion or final hydrolysis is happening in the small intestine only. After the small intestine, there is no further digestion takes place. At the small intestine only, complete digestion takes place and absorption also takes place there. Mode of secretion of these enzymes is holocrine type of secretion. Holocrine type of secretion means entire cell involved in the secretion of substance and also it dies for the secretion. అది secrete చేయడానికి మొత్తం సెల్ మొత్తం కూడా రిలీజ్ అయిపోతుంది. ఇట్ రిలీజెస్ ద టోటల్ కంటెంట్ ఆఫ్ ది సెల్. ఆ సెల్ లో ఉన్నటువంటి కంటెంట్ మొత్తం కూడా రిలీజ్ అవుతుంది అనమాట. దట్ ఈస్ ద హోలోక్రైన్ ప్రాసెస్. And enzymes, I already told peptidases, disaccharides, and intestinal lipases, enterokinase. Peptidases, you know, different peptidases, they are converting the peptides to amino acids. Disaccharides, they are converting disaccharides to monosaccharides. Monosaccharide means like glucose, okay. And intestinal lipases, they are involving in the splitting of triglycerides. Generally, gastric lipase, it converts the fat into triglycerides. Here, intestinal lipase, they are also converts the triglycerides into fatty acids and glycerols. Next, enterokinase. Enterokinase is converting the trypsinogen to trypsin. It converts the trypsinogen to trypsin. And some other cells which are present in the intestinal wall, they are stem cells, Paneth cells. Paneth cells are very important role in the protection of stem cells. So why stem cells are need here in the intestinal walls? Generally, these cells are holocrine type of nature. Holocrine type of nature means the cell will die for the secretion of substance. For the secretion of intestinal juice, the intestinal cells are dying. So for these some cells are dying means the next some cells will be born. So these are happening with the stem cells. So these stem cells are protected by the Paneth cells. Okay, endocrine cells are there. They are producing some hormones. And Peyer's patches. These are very important. Peyer's patches are lymphoid tissue. These are these lymphoid cells tissue. It collects the any foreign invader or any kind of microorganism which is not related to our body. Okay, that is those are also collected by the Peyer's patches. This is the lymphoid aggregation. And let us recap what we told today. I already told about in the last class. We already told about gland. Gland is it's an organ which is useful for the production of some substance, and it is having a specific role in the human body. That is called gland. And types of glands are also yesterday we discussed: manner of secretion and site of secretion and nature of secretion. Okay. And classification of associated glands, major glands and minor glands, mostly salivary glands here we discussed, and difference between exocrine and endocrine glands. Salivary glands, those are major salivary glands and minor salivary glands. So they are present at different location, and they are secreting different substances. Their structure also different. So yesterday I given some assignment on this